An army of lions commanded by a lamb does not frighten me, but I cannot say the same for the army of lambs commanded by a lion. Alexander the Great. He was general at 16, king at 20, and ruler of one of the world's greatest empire 26. As young as 33, he died and passed away from this world. Undoubtedly, few soldiers in history have had his destiny. Alexander, or the legendary name of Alexander the Great all over the world. Alexander the Great had fought for 11 years against superior forces outnumbering his own army, and he did not lose any of these battles. He was an ambitious commander who wanted to conquer the entire known world starting from Macedonia. He was not only an ambitious soldier but also a ruler. He made attempts that had never been seen before and had never been tried before. It combined infirmity, cavalry and engineers with intelligent and logistical support. With his efforts to unite the West and the East, his own politics, the lands that he conquered. He tried to direct the world by taking his military and economic practice. It was partially successful. Alexander was born in 356 BC to the King Philip and Queen Olympias. He was used advantage of being born the royal family to the fullest. Even if we say that he took private lessons from the famous philosopher Aristotle, it will be enlightening enough for to understand the environment in which he grew up. He was tried by his father's warrior until he was 16 years old. Even at that age, he had soldiers taking orders from him. In the war that was won in those years and ensured the entire Greek peninsula fell into the hands of Macedonians. As one of the commanders at the head of the army, blood was already pouring from his sword. Luckily, when his father, King Philip, was making plans to invade Anatolia to conquer the Persian Empire, he was swept away by a guard who grinned at him and was forced to migrate from the world. From that moment on, 20 years old Alexander, who made his goal to realize his father's dream. Now he became a ruler completely, and as the first thing he had everyone who opposed the power, especially the one of the killer his father, cleared. Because before he conquered the world, he did not want anyone around him who would be dangerous to him. He started to conquer the whole world by saying that there is no place for two rulers in the world, just as there is no room for two suns in the sky. He never fought at night. He was a soldier with tremendous self-confidence. He preferred the day because he wanted his enemy to see how Alexander defeated them. Alexander knew very well the power of his opportunities, and he had really important opportunities. Besides the throne, he was extremely well trained and disciplined. He was the sole heir of an experienced army organized around soldiers wielding weapons that were twice the length of the normal spear. Before his father's body was cold with 300 spearmen, infantrymen and engineers. He led an army of 6,000 engineers, which was considered gigantic at that time. Spearmen was called sarissa troops. Sarissas or pikemen were the main skeleton of Alexander's army. These units were supported by light infantry with high mobility. The mounted cavalry, on the other hand, attacked from the slits opened by spearmen to the defense from the flanks where the enemy was really more vulnerable. So thanks to the pikemen wielding sarissas that are twice the length of the normal spears, Alexander did not lose single battle. Alexander's biggest event in the conquest struggles took place in the war he faced with Darius III. As he crossed today's Syria with his army, he came face to face with the Persian army of Darius, which was 3 times the size of his own army. Neither spearmen nor cavalry were able to break through the huge Persian army. The morale of Alexander's soldiers was breaking, and the battle looked like it was going to be lost. At that moment, Alexander, like a suicide commando, took the lead of his soldiers and launched an attack directly targeting Darius. The defense line of the front of the Persian king could not hold against Macedonian's private cavalry. Darius and his soldiers fled so fast that the king's mother, wife, and even children were left of the battlefield. Alexander, who put to sword all those who refused to surrender in his previous war, He followed different policy that day, treating captive Persians, including the king's family, according to their status and giving some of them the opportunities to switch sides. Darius, on the other hand, never met Alexander again. According to some sources, the Persian king was eliminated by a man named Bezus, and Alexander had Bezus captured and crucified. Because according to Alexander, only he could kill his enemy, no one else could touch his enemy. On the basis states until that day concepts such a working as on general war plan on the development special strategies were unknown before Alexander. Frontline tactics were not yet developed. The rule was extremely simple. The outnumbered and well-armed would win the war. The Macedonian leader developed many years and encircled the enemy of simultaneous coordinated the foot troops and mounted cavalry. By including the navy his strategies, he created armed galleys that would be used frankly in the following countries. One historian says, before Alexander, wars were like street fights. After Alexander, it turned into the big but unheuristic play. Continuing on his way with these war strategies, Alexander, by adding Egypt to the place conquered, he founded Alexandria, which will keep his name alive on the mouth of the Nile River. The city suddenly changed to be Egypt and became the center of commerce, science, and literally of the Greek world. During his occupation of Egypt, he ordered all buildings burned except temples and the house of the poet Pindar. Because the poet Pindar presided Alexander the great-grandfather on his poems, he was forgiven by Alexander. Egyptian Alexander revolutionized history, especially in the field of science. For example, Euclid, who systematized geometry and gave its shape, preserved until the 9th century, lived here. In addition to his theoretical discoveries in physics, Archimedes, who made famous from his war mission Sicily, was studied Euclid. And it was precisely in the city Alexander that people were convinced that the sun does not revolve around the earth, but the earth revolves around the sun. Alexandria, where these scientists were educated, and its famous library burned down in the following centuries as the result of Julius Caesar's siege of Alexandria. Thousands of parchments, which could not reach today and contain unique information from that period, could not save it, were destroyed. If we go back to Alexander's life, throughout his life, especially Alexander of Egypt, he founded more than 70 cities named after him. İskender in Turkey is just one of them. According to another legend, Alexander, with his sword blown in Gordian near President Eskişehir, he had managed to ante the Gordian knot, thrown by King Midas. Whoever managed to ante the knot would own all of Asia. That's what happened. Alexander proclaimed his rule over most of Asia. On the other hand, the geography of the Egypt would now be ruled by nobs and soldiers of Greek origin. Alexander was impressed that Egypt temples in Egypt, which were built in reference from Ammon and fell into arguing with heathens. He began to claim that he had divine power and began to see himself as a god. According to him, the one who broke through the most important defense line in the world escaped death many times. Only the gods could achieve a feat that subdued the Persian Empire did not lose any war. His soldiers, who admired him insanely for the courage, the leadership in the defeats in battles, that had no trouble accepting that Alexander was blessed. Moreover, under the conditions of that period, it was easier than taught the imperative people. Untimely, Alexander controlled all Macedonian, Anatolian and Persian lands until his death of the age of 33. He built the world's largest empires in less than 5 years. Not only that, he was also conquered Afghanistan, Central Asia and India. Bucephalus, a beloved horse whom kept him trodden with childhood and won many battles, filled the ground in his war with Indian ruler Porus. Later, Alexander had a city built in his name where he lost his horse. Today, the city is assumed to be somewhere near Jolene, Pakistan. However, the body of his incredible leader could not bear such intense events in short time. According to the Psalm, he left behind gigantic empires stretching from present-day Greece to the Himalayas. The administration of the lands of the question was divided among Alexander's own officers or returned to his former enemies who had gained his trust. He captured foreign soldiers who were trained according to the Macedonian tactics and including the Macedonian army. In addition, as another factor connecting the West and the East, Alexander. He married about 10,000 of his soldiers' other civilizations, especially the Persians. He had a similar marriage. He had 3 wives in total. Their children were murdered at a young time. As a result, the leader of Macedonians never reached his home. Despite his divinity, he fell ill on the way and became declared that was mortal too. Probably believing that he would never die, he neither appointed a successor nor appointed an heir. His only testament was his empire should fall into the lands of the Medes. It took nearly 40 years to post-Alexander northward regain a new order, a Macedonian general named Ptolemy, who was the richest among the newly established kingdoms. By taking over Egypt, he seized Alexander's body and buried him in a magnificent tomb in Alexandria. As its guardian, he gained special prestige and superiority. This person also founded the Egyptian dynasty and Cleopatra, one of the most famous female rulers in history. He was also Persian from the family Ptolemy, thus which will affect dozens of rulers after him. The story of the Alexander the Great, who became famous at the Great in the history, has come at the end. Undoubtedly, if he had not lost his life at 33, he'd been seen aged of 60, 70, who would watch his history from the world a completely different course today. The events would have progressed in a different direction, and perhaps we would have seen different kingdoms dominate humanity. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. Hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye.